Hello. We're going to make some bread. We're still waiting for our preserved lemons to be finished because it takes an entire month. So in the meantime, we're going to make some bread using a homemade sourdough starter, einkorn flour, and turkey red, a great whole wheat. It's very tasty. Okay. Many years ago, I made my starter. This girl here is, 5 years old, maybe? Then in the world of starters, that's actually quite young because there's some starters that are like 100, In any event, this is a pure einkorn starter. And I make only einkorn products for people in my world who are gluten sensitive but do not have actual celiac disease, because einkorn is wheat, there is gluten, but it behaves in a very different way molecularly and turns out to be much less inflammatory in the gut, and that has been demonstrated in some very interesting in vitro studies conducted by Italian scientists. Okay, so einkorn starter. We can talk another time about how to make a starter, and I know that lots of people are irritated by people posting all their videos about how they're making sourdough bread and stuff during the quarantine. I just want to say for the record that I've been making sourdough bread with my own starter for many years. This is not new. But it's really fun and really satisfying, and this is a way of making bread, and I'm more than happy to tell people how to make starter, or you just borrow starter and keep it in your own refrigerator. It's really not a big deal and not a big mystery. Okay, so basically this is going to be a mix of these two flours. The starter is going to be mixed with water and a bunch of delicious olive oil that my husband brings back in his suitcase from Italy, and some salt. And then we're going to mix it up, and all it needs to do is sit all night long. And then I put it in a basket, and then I bake it. Very easy. Okay, so I've measured everything out. 300 grams of the turkey red, 500 grams of the einkorn flour, plus 2 teaspoons of salt. Here I've measured out 150 grams of my starter, my einkorn starter. So into the big mixing bowl goes my starter. And then I take some of my awesome extra virgin olive oil from Italy. Amore, da dove viene questo olio?
Viene da Spello, in Umbria.
Spello, in Umbria. Okay, I poured a whole bunch of it in there. Let's call that a quarter of a cup.
Hi, I am the husband.
Okay, so then I incorporate the oil into the starter. See what I'm doing? Okay, so we'll show when it's all mixed in and incorporated.
Grazie.
Okay, so it's all mixed in. Okay, so then I take a generous 2 cups of warm water, and then what I do is completely dissolve the starter and oil into the water. So it's completely homogeneous. No lumps of starter anywhere. In the meantime, if you're interested in learning about baking with einkorn flour, I cannot recommend more this brand, Jovial Foods. Not sponsored, just love their products. Go to the Jovial Foods website and you can buy einkorn flour directly from them, but also you can buy a cookbook about how you bake things with einkorn flour, which is very, very healthy and less irritating to those who have a little gluten sensitivity. Okay, so here we are. Totally homogeneous, creamy mixture here. Okay. And then I take my flour and I dump it in. Okay. Then I have this fantastic kneading tool, also purchased from Jovial Foods, which is really, really helpful because einkorn is a very, very sticky making dough. So you don't have to do a lot of stirring and kneading with the dough, but it really helps to get it mixed up. So what I'm doing is taking my kneading tool and I'm mixing it around. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up this dough until all the flour is absorbed, but it's going to be really quite sticky, sort of like this. It's not going to be what you imagine is like a ball of dough that you knead on your counter. So what I'm going to do with this is gather up all this dough, and I'm going to put it in another bowl, and I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap, and I'm going to leave it overnight. And then you'll see what the next step is at that time. New day, new t-shirt. Okay, so here is the dough that has been resting all night in another bowl, covered in plastic, and then covered with a towel. Why? Because the little creatures that cause the dough to rise like anaerobic environment and like it dark. Okay. Here's the reveal. Wow. You see here, it's filled with bubbles and gases from all of the activity from my starter. So, this is a slightly more complex part. I mean, complex, maybe not. Messy, maybe. But with practice, it's easier. Okay, so what I'm going to do is turn the bread out, the dough out, into my little pile of flour. I've also floured the inside of this basket called a banneton. And this is very sticky, okay? Part of what makes, oh, look at it. Look, I'm like breaking it, and so now the gas is escaping, and it's shrinking. So satisfying. So part of what makes working with einkorn difficult is that it's very, very sticky. And the more that you practice with it, the more that you'll understand that it's a flour that doesn't need to be handled very much. So right now it's extremely sticky, but in a few short maneuvers you will see how it kind of gets converted into a more manageable ball of dough. All right. Don't want to waste. I'm getting all of my dough out of the bottom of the bowl. Okay. So, I'm using a rigid spatula because most people have that in their house. You can also use this tool here, a scraper. It's excellent. So, I kind of take the the dough with the flour, and I sort of push it around into a bit of a ball, all the while kind of coating it with the flour. And once it's coated in the flour, I can actually touch it, right? I can touch it, and then it won't stick to my hands, and then I can knead it. So see how it went like almost instantaneously from like sticky, unmanageable to now with just a little bit of flour, I'm able to manipulate it. Okay, so I'm not going to do a ton of kneading, just a couple of turns here. And then I'm going to shape it into a ball. How do you do that effectively? Well, I sort of make a bit of a, flat circle. And then I take each of these, my doorbell's ringing. See, okay.
I can cut it. Don't worry.
So you form it into a ball like this. You sort of, I'm going to put a little more flour in my hand so it doesn't get stuck. So to pull all of the things into the flat circle and then create a ball and sort of roll it around in my hands so that it becomes sort of a more round ball like this. Then I put it into the banneton. And then it's going to sit there for 30 minutes or so while I heat up the pot that I'm going to cook it in. I'm going to rinse my hands. Okay, so this is a gargantuan pot. Okay, usually I use a slightly smaller pot, but I realized this morning that my smaller pot was full of matzo ball soup. Okay, so I'm using the giant pot. What do? I stick this giant pot in the oven at 500 degrees, and I let it heat up for 25, 30 minutes. And only when the pot and the oven is incredibly hot do I then flip the dough into the pot and then score the top of it. So I will show you that momentarily. Okay, I'm pulling out my extremely hot pot. You must be very, very, very careful when you do this so you don't burn yourself. Okay, I've been heating the pot inside my oven for about 20, 25, 30 minutes, depends on your oven. And now I'm going to pull out the pot and I'm going to flip the dough into the pot, and then I'm going to score it with this thing called, let me say in my French accent, lame. Okay, here we go. Oh. All right, so here goes. 1, 2, 3. Don't be afraid. There we go. And now I'm scoring. I'm scoring. I'm scoring. I'm scoring. I'm scoring. And now I'm closing. And I'm putting back in the pot into the oven. And then I'm turning the temperature down to 450 Fahrenheit. Okay? Now it's going to be in the pot covered for 35 minutes. Why do we cook it in a covered pot, you ask? Because the humidity and the gases and the water vapors that release from the dough as it gets hot create a very nice, controlled, humid environment for the bread to bake in. After 35 minutes, I'm going to take the lid off, and then I'm going to bake it for another 15 minutes to get it browned and crispy. See you then. Okay, it's time to uncover the bread. Look at Okay, so now it goes back in the oven for 15 minutes. All right, we've reached the end. There it is.
Mmm.
And now I take it out of the pot and I let it cool. Very important to not cut your bread immediately because it is continuing to cook. And if you open it up now, you might get a gummy, less than satisfying interior. So although everyone wants to cut into a hot bread, it is too hot now. You must wait at least an hour, and ideally two. That's it.